Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to another Wednesday episode of Industry Chats. I am Jasmine Saliga, the founder of Affixify, and your host on Industry Chats almost every week. Sometimes we have Stephanie pop in here and there, but one of my very favorite parts of the week is what we do here. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is a live show. We go live on LinkedIn every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Central, and we talk about various educational topics for hospitality and travel. So we have had a host of guests. We are nearing our 50th guest actually on June 3rd. That'll be our 50th episode. And so our goal is to educate you today. So whether you're watching live or on YouTube later, thank you so much for tuning in. I am beyond excited to welcome it's very rare you get to have like a guest that's also a friend. And so my dear friend, Steve Shotsberger is with us today. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jasmine. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to work with you and Stephanie and the team at Affixify.
You're a Affixify favorite. So Steve and I met when I think we were first launching the company. I met you through Mark Oliver. So shout out to our dear friend, Mark. He's a great
shout out to Mark.
I've known Mark since I was 24. So a long time, we'll just leave it at that, a long time. And he connected us. And Steve, you've been just such a great friend and partner of the company and all of these things. So I'm thrilled to have you today. And before we dive into the topic, so we are going to talk about asset management today. Steve, you've kind of schooled us on asset management, so I'm really excited to do that for the audience today. But
Sure.
What I actually want to do is have you take the floor for a minute and just tell us about Evolve, because you guys at Evolve are doing a lot of different things. You have so much expertise. You're obviously the founder, the CEO. So Steve, introduce us to who you are. What does Evolve do before we talk about today's topic?
Sounds good. Thank you, Jasmine. So Evolve Hospitality Group, I founded the company. We're going on year 9, which is fantastic. And so I and my team, there's 4 of us total. We've got a combined probably, greater than 100 years of combined hotel operations and asset management experience. So we all come from various disciplines within hospitality and long operations background. In short, we help hospitality owners, investors, operators unlock the full potential of their carefully curated hotels, resorts, inns, guest ranches. So we predominantly focus on the independent boutique luxury end of the business, but dabble all over the industry and get various requests for work. So we combine that hands-on operations experience, years of strategic advisory of just seeing the ins and outs of what happens day to day and short term and long term inside of hotel properties. And so we're really here to define and drive stronger guest and associate and ownership experiences. And a lot of our properties want to engage more with their communities. We help with that. But the business as a whole is built on 2 pillars. It's strategic advisory, focused on hotel operations. And then the other side of the business, we do quite a bit of development and investment work. So we're involved in buy side and sell side acquisitions. We're doing all the development market is crazy right now, is real strong. So we're doing quite a bit of adaptive reuse work and just bringing new hotel properties into the marketplace throughout the country, throughout North America. So it's a really fun time to be in the business. So
I am hearing, I feel like weekly, new development, that's crossing my desk more than it ever has. And a lot of opportunity there. So tell me this, for Evolve, do you guys, I know the answer, but I'm asking you for our audience. Do you focus in the brand space, in the independent luxury? Where do you guys spend most of your time?
We're predominantly focused in the independent space. We do just some work in the brand space. And so we do some management contract evaluation and do have owners that have decided that they want a brand and a management contract. We'll help them navigate that piece, but we predominantly sit and do the majority of our work in the independent boutique space.
I love it. Well, I think there's a big differentiation there. So we know this. So to have an expert like you guys come in and you just, you really can dig in and help those independents. such an asset, no pun intended, such a need. And so I think what you're doing is amazing. I know, I don't know about all your projects, but as you share some of your projects with me, I always think it's so intriguing. And to hear how you work with owners, like I personal experience can tell you have such a heart for helping the owner, make sense of things and be profitable and just helping them navigate. So I really
Absolutely.
like, what you and your team are doing. And tell everybody you're in Colorado, so home base for
Yeah, the business is based just south of Denver, so we're in Colorado. We're rarely ever here, as many of us, all of us that are in the business know. It takes you all over the world. So I spent many years of my life all over the place and still do. So I don't know. I think I was on 60 United Airlines flights last year or something like that. So
they know you.
we're
They
on
know
the move.
I love it. Well, I am excited to open up this topic today. You and I have been talking about this since February,
Right.
and with asset management is something, like I said, when we decided as a team we should do expansion of our listings in the marketplace. So not just tech, which has been great. Then we added consultants, which you were one of our first consultants to be added. And then we started to look at, I had started to see chatter on LinkedIn and all these places of like, hey, who would I talk to for management? And who would I talk to? And you're telling us about asset management. And so it kind of became this, it just made sense. It's a no brainer, right? Like, how does one go about finding help in asset management or management company help? And so we did this kind of inaugural listing in
Yeah.
February, and
Yeah.
Evolve is actually listed in both categories, but today we are going to talk about asset management. I want to talk through, we'll talk through some of the challenges and all of that. But before we even get to that, if you had to give like a very brief overview of what is an asset manager, what does their day-to-day look like, what would you say?
Sure. Yeah, the asset manager or the asset management function is really designed to make sure not only operationally, but on a long-term perspective, we're maximizing the performance and the value of the asset for the ownership. So
Okay.
it's just a tool that brings in a layer of expertise. And it's interesting. I have this conversation often with owners, and a lot of times they come from not the hotel. Often they come from not the hotel industry, or they have certain capabilities, or they're running another business and they want certain levels of involvement or no involvement.
Yeah.
And so how do you navigate how to make sure you get the maximum potential out of your hotel?
Yeah.
And that's what asset management is in a nutshell. And ultimately that answer is long-term asset value, and I want to make money. And
Yeah.
easier said than done sometimes in our business. So that's what asset management does.
That answers I think it fills a gap, because a lot of the time, you and I work with on the tech side, people that are there for an experience, and they're in hospitality for hospitality. But a lot of times the owner, am I correct? They're an investor. I mean, at the end of the day, they're an investor. This is an
Right.
investment for them. Whether or not they want to be hands-on is TBD, but it sounds like often they don't, right? They want someone like
Exactly.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly.
what are some of these challenges facing owners? So you have conversations all the time. I mean, you're on site with owners. What are the biggest challenges you find? So before they talk to you about like, let's make this happen, I'm sure they sit down. Sometimes I joke that my discovery calls are like counseling sessions, because people really share their pain with technology on my end. But tell me about, what are the challenges owners are facing that even brings them to the table with someone like Evolve in the
Yeah.
assets?
Yeah. The business is ever changing, right? Like you and I talk about it all the time with technology, right? We're in this disruptor technology market. That's just one piece of the pie. But owners are facing these multiple pressures of,
Right.
it's everybody wants this, there's their life cycle of the asset to go perfectly, but we're going to have downturns in the economy. Things are going to happen. So they're dealing with all these pressures of, rising labor costs, insurance costs are through the roof. They've got these brand requirements that they may need to accomplish. So there's changing guest expectations that they're trying to navigate through their operating teams. And so, it's the challenge is identifying just what needs to change and then sequencing it for them. But they a lot of times just need that resource to say, okay, let's come at this from an outside perspective. Let's evaluate your business and sequence this and come up with a plan to improve.
Do you find that they come to you when proactively, which is probably a no, where they're like, I'm going to invest in a hotel. I need some help. Or are they coming to you like, Steve, we
Hmm.
really need better help. Like, we really need to make this profitable.
Both.
Okay.
I think there's the daunting side of the development or
Yeah.
acquisition of the hotel and saying,
Sure.
oh gosh, how do I get through this? And
Yeah.
then there's the piece of, oh, this is keeping me up at night. Or a lot of times it's, it's evaluating a P&L and saying, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this business isn't performing the way I thought it would, or I can't sustain this. I
Hmm.
can't keep pumping money into this business. How do I go about addressing this? And a lot of times, they'll have ideas as to what it is. But there's just, always little nuances to the business, the little things that when you think about them long term over a multi-year period, they are big impacts on the guest experience, on the staff experience, and on the performance of the business. So we identify those.
And so, yeah, I mean, I would think once they come to you, you've identified how you can help, you jump right in, right? And I'm sure you have all kinds of planning and I don't know, maybe blueprints, or is everybody so different you can't really
They're all
blueprint?
different. There's no canned approach to
Yeah.
asset management. Every asset's a little bit different based
Yeah.
on, I was having a conversation with an owner the other day, and the conversation was really focused on, where's my revenue coming from? So we have there's a box of what we expect in the industry of rooms is generating so much revenue, food and beverage, spa and
Yeah.
wellness, etc. And this model was just different, and it was just a different thought process. So there's no canned approach
Sure.
to what we do, because every asset, particularly on some of the small independent boutiques,
Right.
there's so much owner personality, general manager personality, long-term staff personality to these properties,
Mm.
that they're just unique. And if you are to bring a canned approach, or what a lot of my owners say is I don't want a corporate approach,
Yeah. Yeah.
bringing this customized approach. But it's generally, it's leadership, it's financial performance, it's what's the physical condition of the asset. That's a big
Mhm.
topic. But they're all different.
Yeah, well, and physical condition would be something I hadn't even thought of. I mean, I'm sure that has so much to do with it. And honestly, to me, I like what you're saying about like every owner is different in personality, because your niche is kind of this independent side.
Mm-hmm.
Then bringing you to the table, you can really evaluate, here's what we should do based on your use case versus, and nothing wrong with the brands. We've talked to people that are very brand centric.
Right.
You don't have to follow some, it sounds like you have freedoms and flexibilities. And that's why anyone listening, it's like bring in an expert like Evolve, because you guys have seen this before, and I'm sure
Right.
the owner can take a big sigh of relief once they've talked to you, like, okay, we can make something work. We can fix
Right.
this area or improve the P&L.
Exactly. And there's no harm in bringing in a resource, an industry
Yeah.
expert, whether
Yeah.
it's Evolve or someone else, to evaluate the business. It can't hurt, because you're going to learn something. And it's, ultimately it's a path to, efficiency,
Mhm.
maximization of the business.
Mhm.
And then ultimately, where are you in the life cycle as an owner? Where are you in the life cycle with your brand?
Yep. Yep.
And let's not focus on what's happening right here, right now in the 2026 operating budget. Let's step outside of that and look a little bit longer term,
Mhm.
so that you as the owner, the investment team,
Right.
best interest for the life cycle of how long you want to own and operate the business are taken
Yeah.
care of.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really good point. A question that comes to my mind, we haven't even gotten to the next step, but I just want to ask one thing that just organically came to my mind is, do you ever talk to owners that are saying, hey, Steve, I have a great asset, but I'm really debating between keeping this independent or branding, or vice versa. I'm branded, but I kind of want to take it independent. I mean, how do you approach those conversations? Because I'm
Yeah.
also hearing that too,
Mm-hmm.
or flag to flag, or you name it. I mean, there's so many
Right.
scenarios within
Right.
that umbrella.
Yeah. And it's coming at it with an open mind. There's amazing brands, there's amazing management companies out there.
Yeah.
There's amazing independently owned and operated owner operated hotels. So just coming at it with an open mind and saying, okay, why are you considering this? And a lot of times, on the brand side, it's loyalty program, it's database,
Yeah.
it's technology, right? Reservation system predominantly. So where are you in your market, and what is your market and how does that impact you?
Yeah.
Versus, whether you're today running independently or considering running independently, what are those pros and cons? And let's evaluate it and use real data.
Mm-hmm.
And those, like I said, everything's, very customized. So they come out different ways with different types of properties and different destinations and the positioning of the asset and, whether it's urban or rural. So there's a lot of factors that weigh into those decisions.
My opinion is this is why AI can never replace humans in all of these processes, because you cannot replace experience. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love our AI vendors, but yeah. So talk to me then. The other thing we want to touch on is like well managed versus well operated, and this was the term you used, and I loved it. I might steal it, by the way, subject line. But well managed versus well operated. When the first thing that someone on our team asked, which is very fair, when we started doing this work with you, was like, what is the difference of a management company and asset manager? And so we had our friends Desert Hospitality on the rundown last week. They gave a great explanation from the management company lens, but what would you say are the differences of a well-operated versus a well-managed hotel, and when do those two kind of work together?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I use the term a lot as I'm talking to people throughout the industry, and it's not something everyone thinks about. So you're like, okay, well-operated, like what does that mean to me? Well-managed, what does that mean to me? And so from my perspective and how I approach it, that well-managed is we're delivering consistent service. Our guests are happy, the staff's happy, the ownership's happy, we're engaged in our community, our financials look good, we're making money, we're able to function every day, and the day-to-day operations and the execution day-to-day is really strong. That's pretty well operated. For most, that checks the box, right?
Right.
Well managed hospitality takes it a step further. So it connects the operations to the owner's broader objectives. So this gets into kind of, I would mention just prior as we were just chatting through, is, what are those owner objectives and how are we stepping outside of what's happening right here, right now, day to day, and saying, okay, what are the owner objectives? Is that cash flow? Is that, repositioning the asset? Is that some sort of value add renovation? Do we need to recapitalize because we need money to do something to reposition this asset? And ultimately, what does long-term value creation mean for our ownership? So making that connection between operator, general manager predominantly, and the ownership group and saying, okay, let's have those conversations. And our great operators and our great general managers industry are thinking ahead and saying, okay, this isn't about October is going to come and we're going to build the 2027 operating budget and good, we're on our way to 2027. This is, okay, what's happening 5 years from now?
Yes.
And hey, who's in our comp set? Who just entered our comp set that we maybe don't know about?
Right.
And how do we navigate this well-managed asset that we're really comfortable today with how we're operating?
Yeah.
But let's be well managed and have a really keen, concise, executable strategy, like eliminate the execution risk long term.
Well, and so it sounds like well managed is much more strategic. It's
that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, much more strategic. And I'm also curious, I'm very curious. I'm sure you have use cases of when would you make a decision of like an actual upgrade or, changing an amenity or whatever that will be a big cost up front, I assume, but then a long-term gain. Is that based on the comp set? Like, do you ever go in and say, you need a spa, or is it not that intense? Is it like, hey, we really need to update your restaurant or this and that, the other, to be competitive with your market, your local market?
Yeah, you hit on it. I mean, the short answer to that is, okay, where are we positioned and how are we competing in our competitive set? And is this where we want to be? And then two, what's our guest telling us?
Yeah.
What are our Revenate surveys, as an example, telling us about, like, what are these recurring issues, recurring challenges, and really relying on the guest and the staff as well. You learn a lot from housekeepers who are in and out of your guest rooms and in and out of your food and beverage outlets every day, of kind of why is the furniture scratched and why has that chair been broken for 3 years? And so how do we continue to stay on top of our comp set and really, like, product's half the equation, right?
Yeah.
So if we're gonna, you mentioned, when do you put a spa in? Okay, well, if we're positioning ourselves in the comp set and everybody else has a spa, and that spa margin in the destination makes sense, let's
Yeah.
compete because
Yeah.
we have to drive the rate.
Mm.
But the other equation of it is service, right? So
Yeah.
delivering the service is more important than
Mm.
continually spending money on the product.
I'm hearing more and more, this is a kind of an aside, but of like outsourced third-party spas coming into the hotel. So like when I used to be in the spa space as well a little bit, but people saying like, oh, we actually don't manage our spa. So such and such does that. So I'm sure that could be a creative way to still have that part of your asset, but not necessarily have to add to it. Although that probably comes with its own pros
Yeah,
and cons, I'm
exactly.
sure.
Yeah, you know what? That's a winning scenario for some, and others want to control the service levels a little bit more and control the experience. So that, as you know, they want to self-operate and
Yeah.
have those spa techs and therapists as their own employees, so that they're delivering the same service across the entire hotel.
It definitely is interesting to see the differences. That's an area I think is another conversation, but I love the topic of spas in the hotel, and whether it's an amenity or is that a driver. But anyway, talk to me about. So we're going to get to technology because we have to talk a little bit about technology on industry
Yeah.
chats. But before that, are there any opportunities? So if I'm an owner and I'm calling you today, like, hey, Steve, I need help. Like I'm just not seeing growth in my investment. What are the missed opportunities you see commonly? Like, what would you say that your owner, or maybe it's the same. There's no one size fits all, but is there anything that comes to mind that like owners are really missing opportunities here, or, hey, don't miss out on this so that, this is something really good. Like, is that, I could think of 10 things, but I'm not going to answer my question. You tell me, what are the commonly seen missed opportunities that you see for owners?
Yeah, I think the kind of the macro answer to that question is, and I'm sure this is how you're thinking about it too, Jasmine, is it's that equation of performance and positioning,
Mm-hmm.
and really how are we doing. So the missed opportunities, like how are you evaluating that? So what comes to my mind first is what's the RevPAR performance? Like, okay, I'm in a competitive set, I'm in a marketplace.
Yeah.
Like where like what's my star report telling me from a
Mm.
RevPAR? And then ultimately, like RevPAR is becoming an old term, right? It's so revenue per available room. Let's talk about TrevPAR,
Yeah.
total revenue per
Yeah.
available room. That's an important topic, right? And so that's one. And then, margin pressure. Labor is costing us more than it's ever costed. I mentioned insurance, utilities. We
Yeah.
all see it at the gas pump, whatever it is. That goes to, and I'm seeing it on the development side, where for the first time really ever, we're seeing these massive escalation factors built into hard construction for hotels, just because of tariffs and lead times to get things. So it's
Yeah.
that margin pressure.
Mm.
And then I think the one I see probably the most that gets missed, because owners, most of the time, they're not there, they live somewhere else. Even those that live in the same town or the same city, come to the property. They, most owners like, oh, I don't want to be in anybody's way, so
Yeah.
they show up once or twice a week. It's inconsistent service. And
Oh, yeah.
so that's a big, where you think, oh, the service is good. Well, watch your comment cards, because your guest is going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And your staff is going to tell you about it. And so we're seeing these, labor, consequences, right? Of,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe we 5 years ago had, this is a crude example, but we had 5 front desk agents, and now we only have 2.
Yep.
That impacts service. So that's a big one.
You mentioned surveys twice now. I have a heart for this. Just that's my, our background at DA, at Affixify is our old company, DA. We were heavy on surveys. We did surveys for all of the military hotels and luxury hotels around the world. And I'm like, I think that hoteliers know this, but if you're watching, please make sure you have a good survey system in place. You can find them on Affixify, by the way, because that is the heart of, a lot of people will not tell you what we learned. They will not tell you to your face, oh, it was fine. How was your stay? It was good. And then they get the email and they'll be, all about it. By the way, you can do some on-property surveys too. So you can try to capture their stay before they get to TripAdvisor. But I agree with you. I think surveys are key, paying attention. I had a guest on here recently that he owns hotels, and he talked about Like their goal is if you see a service offering or an amenity or something on their website, you receive that same thing as what they told you would. So that he said it's a matter of integrity. And I thought that was so interesting. Like if you say you're going to do it and you market yourself as this type of property, you have to deliver on that as consistently as possible when the guest actually arrives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you make a great point. I mean, surveys have tremendous value. So hoteliers out there, don't just send out surveys, control that process with a standard operating procedure. And please, please, please respond to your surveys, engage with your guests post-stay.
Yeah.
You see it, I'm sure too, Jasmine. I mean, I'm fortunate. I go to a lot of great hotels. And as I said, traveling on 60 United flights a year, I get surveys. I always feel like I want to provide feedback, whether I have an amazing experience or a not so great experience. And I would say 9.9 of every 10 of those surveys I fill out, no response, not even a thank you. There's no post-stay engagement. That's going back to our question about opportunities. That's an inconsistent service piece.
The number one way to know how you're doing is to listen to your customer, right? That's my opinion. Obviously,
go on to Affixify and go to the guest retention section and learn about surveys, because there's some you mentioned technology. There's some great technology.
Very good technology. Well, and it's a no-brainer, but not everybody, especially in the independent space, it may not be something that people think of. I think sometimes we operate under our own assumptions, which I think can be very dangerous. So we assume my guests are happy, I have all things working together. But then when you dive into the data, that's not always the case. So always really good to get that feedback. Tell us a little bit, Steve, I cannot believe we're at almost 30 minutes. Like this is when you and I talk, it's always like this. I love it. Technology. So I appreciate you bringing this into the conversation, because a lot of our viewership, obviously, they're looking for tech things. Right. Long-term strategy, we want to be learning from you a well-managed property, but technology, of course, plays into that strategy. Talk to me about how tech comes into play. When do you talk to your owners about tech changes? Doesn't sound like that's always the first conversation, but how do you bring that in? Because I'm always intrigued by your model, because you're helping all kinds of things at the property, physical asset, things like that, but you also very much take into account tech. So how do you do that?
Very. Yeah. And you make a good point. It's probably not, it's rarely ever an initial conversation.
Right.
It always comes up. So when you go through an asset management cycle, there's always opportunities around tech. As we talked about early in the call, I call it this disruptor model. We have all this new technology. For years, we were so behind in technology and hospitality, and we had our 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 key systems, and we all had them and we all kind of liked them. Well, now you got options. Now you've got Affixify to define what your options are. But I would say, a lot of our hoteliers and owners that may be listening or will watch this video, they don't know kind of what, you use that term tech stack. Like, what does that mean for your property? And again, it's all different. Yeah. And then how are you operating, right? Like I think about, we have all these amazing revenue management consultants out there, like based on what your revenue management strategy is or how it needs to change, that's going to dictate that piece of technology. Yes. And so, but the technology is critical. I would say it's a large percentage, let's say north of 60, as I go into properties where the technology is antiquated. No one's identified that it's antiquated.
Yep.
And then it's not interfaced. So you're just creating workflow. And then we have this balance, right? Like you get hey, I want to make sure my team, we're engaging the guest personally, 100%. I've been in the business a long time. I am all about guest engagement and FaceTime, but use the AI, use the automation, use what these systems have to automate process so that you have the time to engage with your guests. Whereas, those of us that have been in the business a long time, we didn't have that a decade ago where we had time, we had to sit at a desk. Well, not a lot of desk time anymore. It doesn't need to be. So get your systems integrated. So, I have just an example of, it was a client, and there's just this massive paper shuffle to the point where the costs of printing were like a huge red flag on the P&L. And so what did it come down to?
Wow.
No integration. POS doesn't talk to PMS doesn't talk to back office accounting. And so we all remember the night audit drawer, right? And you open the night audit drawer and everybody throws their end of shift report and the emergency backup reports if the system went down. Well, here's this, how many, 60, 70, 80, 100 pages of paper, not to mention menu printing, BEOs, all that stuff.
Okay, for printing to show up as a red flag on the P&L had to be a lot of printing.
A lot of printing, a lot of color printing that, so.
My gosh.
But
and that, the amount you would be spending on that, imagine what kind of tech you could have. So I think I'm so glad you brought up integration, because integration, that's probably one of the main reasons we started Affixify, which now we've evolved, of course, no pun intended again, but because of PMSs. So my first original vision was, it is so hard. I was helping on a fractional basis with a PMS company at that time. And I was so overwhelmed when people were like, hey, do you know if we can integrate into these, things so that they can sign? They can't sign our contract. That's what's so hard about a PMS sale. It's like, well, we don't know if we're going to get the deal because they need an integration to this and this and this. And then we would have a static landing page to go and be like, oh, I think there's an integration. So Affixify was like, no, we're going to change this so that we can actually figure out who's integrating to who.
Right.
But it's still such a pain point of our industry. It still is to this day. It's like we're a very, as I'm preaching to the choir here, we're so disjointed when it comes to those. So products, and you work with a few of them. I can't call out certain vendors, but there's some really good vendors now that are integrating. They don't charge for the integration, or they're not, at least not a ton. I mean, that used to be a big issue, is we would have someone want to integrate to our CRM, and it was insane just to do and set it up. So it's possible now. You just have to.
It's absolutely possible. Yeah. And it's, we get comfortable, right? Change is hard, and technology change is real hard.
Yes.
And so, I think you just have to come at it with an open mind and utilize your resources and use Affixify and, kind of figure out what you want to do. But I think you make a good point, Jasmine, is somewhere along the way, usually somebody's stuck on something. I don't want to change the PMS. We have to have this point of sale. And it's like, you got to come at it with an open mind, because the integrations sometimes work. There's just different quality of integrations.
Yeah.
And, but, in 2026, if you're using, multiple software platforms in our broader hospitality space, they are not interfaced or integrated, you're at an operational loss. And ultimately, your reporting is broken. And if I'm an owner, and I don't have, if I put my ownership hat on, and if I don't have a very clear, refined reporting structure, that comes to my email when I want it, that's going to be a problem.
One question as we close out, Steve, normally I ask our guests, what was their aha moment, but at Affixify, we're in the process of putting together a guide for new hotel opens, and it's going to be available in June. And so I want to shift gears just a little bit of, if you are sitting down with a brand new owner, they're about to open, never opened a hotel before, maybe they have, but this is a different type of hotel, different scenarios. Is there any key piece of advice for a brand new open that you would give? Obviously, my assumption is bring in asset management early, let's start with the right foundation, but anything else that you find that you're telling brand new opens some of the time?
Then my number one is use your experts.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to, and I think sometimes what you know, and you think you can go about things, which is amazing. And so, what's your capability as a new owner? Let's define that.
Right.
And then ultimately, what resources do you need? And this doesn't need, and I think where owners get scared is, oh my gosh, I've got all these costs to acquire or build or whatever I'm doing with this hotel. I don't want consultants to drag this down. It can be compartmentalized and it can be capitalized. So use your resources, because you're going to get better results. And your ramp up period, whether you're just acquiring the asset or building the asset is going to be shorter with better results. Because I sometimes get the other side of it is, hey, it's year 6, we're way past the ramp up period, and we are not performing. And that's a costly expense that you could have covered for half the amount of money, a third of the amount of money, if you would have done it in the development process.
I have just had that conversation last week with our guest. Her name is Lorene. Calls herself the hotel marketing lady. She's a strategist. And what she told us, we talked about is like, a lot of times people are nervous about hiring the upfront fractional help or consulting help or whatever it is because of the cost. But ironically, when they don't do that, not every time, but oftentimes they end up spending more in the long run, still bringing in the experts down the road, but then reinvesting in technology, new strategy, whatever it is. And there's a reason that, number one, to this day, our top searched category in Affixify is consultants and advisors. Number one searched, and then PMS after that. Second to that is every time I talk to one of you guys, because I do a lot of consultant conversations, it's like, this is such a good year. We're having so much business. So many people are coming to us. Like, there's a huge need for what you guys are doing right now. So I agree with you. Lean on your experts. Don't be afraid to bring them in. There's a reason that you guys are doing what you're doing, right? You have that experience.
100%, 100%. And, and even like if I put myself in that seat that you just described, I'm a new owner, even with my level of experience, I'm still going to bring in my experts. Like you and I talked about spa earlier, right? I'm going to call you, Jasmine, to say, help me concept and program this spa. That's not like, can I do it? Sure. Is that my area of expertise? Right. Absolutely not.
Right.
I'm working on a new development project in upstate New York, and that owner, first-time developer, he's incredibly smart, and he's been amazing about just putting the resources and spending the money because he knows perfection is what he wants, right? And perfection comes from experts and using your resources. So.
Yeah. Hire the smarter people and get out of their way. Isn't that what everybody says, so,
right.
You guys can really make a difference. And I love this conversation. I knew this would be a good one, but this has even exceeded my expectations. So
likewise, thank you for having me.
No, this is so good. I always learn. I've learned so much. For those listening, again, now or later on YouTube, or, if you find this in the guide or anything like that, just keep in mind, you can find Steve through Affixify. So you can actually find him in 3 categories. So he's in our consulting category, asset management, and management company. So when you do your search, connect with Evolve or others like him if you want to have a conversation. I find that almost all of our partners will have a conversation with you, even if it's non-committal. You guys are very good about just sitting down and talking through things. So look for Evolve Hospitality in Affixify, and then follow Steve on LinkedIn. Is that a good place for them to follow your journey? Okay.
EvolveHospitality.group.com for the
Love
website.
It. Yep. Got to go to the website. And then Steve, you'll be at High Tech for anyone that may want
to. High Tech. So anyone that wants to get together. And for some of those hotel owners out there, I will also be at the NYU event at the end of the month in New York City.
Okay. I know a few people going. And then for those tuning in, so next week we have another really great, amazing guest coming on. So actually next Tuesday, we're welcoming Alan Young. He is the Vice President of Product Strategy at Infor, used to be the owner of Puzzle Partner. He is another really, really amazing mind of our industry. So we're going to talk with him about bringing guest service back before it's too late in hospitality. So
the balance of technology and guest engagement.
Yes. Great topic. Oh my goodness. Bring your A game for that, everybody. But Steve, seriously, thank you for being here. Such a blessing to have you on. And for those that want to connect with Steve, you now know where to do it. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.